Cringe-inducing tweets aside, James Gunn is like the only member of the Marvel industrial complex that isn't a complete soulless cultural vampire, and I really like his movie Super, so only good things to say about James Gunn on this show. However, for this video, I'm going to go way back to the start of his film career, when he co-wrote a film called Tromeo and Juliet for Troma Entertainment. For those not in the know, Troma Entertainment is a film production and distribution company founded in 1974 by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Herz. They started off producing these sort of Animal House adjacent sex comedies, but their breakthrough hit in 1984 was The Toxic Avenger, a bloody, over-the-top comedy horror film, and this set the tone for the sort of films they would produce after that point. At this point, I want to make a distinction. Troma makes some of their films in-house, but they also distribute other films under the Troma name without actually being involved in the production of them. Some of the films they distribute without producing themselves are what we could call euphemistically extremely dicey quality. The best films under the Troma label are those directed by Lloyd Kaufman, co-founder and public face of the brand. He directed Tromeo and Juliet along with other Troma classics like The Toxic Avenger and Terra Firma. His films have gotten increasingly over the top and extreme over the years, which some people don't like, but to me that later stuff like Citizen Toxie and Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead is the best stuff that Troma has to offer. Tromeo and Juliet serves as something of a middle ground, where it has an actual cohesive narrative that makes sense, but it also engages at times in the absolute nonsense and over-the-top obscenity that defines Kaufman's later films.
Ryan, you gotta work hard to get ahead in life!
Right, havoc!
Found a peanut just now. Just now I found a peanut just now. I cracked it open, cracked it.
The plot of Tromeo and Juliet is basically a modern urban retelling of the classic Shakespeare play, as told through a 90s alternative lens. The feud between the two families is now based around bad blood over the sale of a pornographic film production company, and the family members, rather than being social elites, are now mostly tattooed thugs and goth girls. What is retained from the original story is the core tale of forbidden love between the two title characters from warring families, and this is actually adapted quite faithfully, and at times portrayed with a tenderness that you would not expect from a film released by Troma Entertainment.
If I profane with my unworthiest hand the holy shrine, the gentle sin is this: my lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with the tender kiss.
Delicate romantic scenes aside, Tromeo and Juliet is pretty gleeful in its violation of taboos. There's domestic violence, there's incest, there's a pedophile priest who's actually portrayed as a heroic character, there's heads being stomped in, there's a club used as a weapon that is for some reason designed to look like Adolf Hitler. It's all part of the Troma brand of being completely flippant about extremely offensive things. Perhaps the most notable example of this is actually the ending of the film, where, spoiler alert, it is revealed that Tromeo and Juliet are in fact brother and sister. Rather than this being a tragic ending putting a stop to their romance, they shack up together and have a bunch of deformed incest kids. Turning something so outrageous into a happy and feel-good ending is an example of the sick vibe that makes this film so much fun to watch. It's a very pop culture heavy film in a way not too dissimilar to something like Pulp Fiction. It has a similar 1990s postmodern feel. The soundtrack is a smorgasbord of rock and alternative music, most of it from artists that nobody's ever heard of, but a song by Motorhead is played a few times throughout the film, and Lemmy himself actually appears to offer some narration at the start.
Two households, different as dried plums and pears, in fair Manhattan where we lay our scene. Two homes adrift in hate for 20 years, a score, awash in sin for long deprived of dreams.
Overall, Tromeo and Juliet is not a perfect film. It's rough around the edges in parts, and some of the jokes don't always land, but overall I really enjoy it, and I appreciate its punk rock attitude. What's interesting to me is the way that Troma is still quite niche. Like, I understand some of the subject matter is pretty niche, but even within the subsection of people who enjoy transgressive movies, Kaufman's films do not have the same cred as someone like John Waters, for example. It's a shame Troma don't always get the respect they deserve as interesting filmic shit-stirrers, but sadly our collective cultural tastemakers have deemed that Banksy is the height of provocation. Oh my goodness, the gentleman from Pulp Fiction holding bananas instead of guns. Oh well, Troma does have a very dedicated fan base after all, and with films like Tromeo and Juliet, you can see why. If you get the humour, that is. James Gunn is now universally known as the Guardians of the Galaxy guy, and soon to be the Suicide Squad guy. But to me, he will always be the man who helped bless the world with Tromeo and Juliet. The fact I was able to buy Tromeo and Juliet on Blu-ray at our nation's largest entertainment retailer is fantastic, because it means there's some small chance that a middle-aged lady out there will buy it thinking it's the Baz Luhrmann film that she saw in her last year of high school with her first boyfriend. She'll sit down to watch it, seeking to relive the stress-free days of her youth, and have her vision blighted by a giant penis monster.